Is it okay to do what you want? Do you actually know what you want? Is it okay to do what you want, but do you actually know what you want? What's the most important thing to you now? Finding non-duality? Finding out truth? Did everything else not work out, so now you're like, screw that, I'm now after truth? It sounds very glorious, truth. I'm now on another mission. No longer a mission to reproduce or to get money or to colour in the details of my life. I am now on the mission to find truth, and that sounds very glorious. I sometimes wonder if spirituality or this subject is more appealing than, say, therapeutic practices, because it sounds so courageous. It sounds like the hero's journey. It's very dramatic. I am going to arrive at liberation. I'm going to become like the Buddha. Whereas going and doing some therapeutic practices implies that there's something broken about you, and you're like, well, there's nothing broken about me. I'm just not enlightened. I remember when I first heard about enlightenment, I fell in love with it. I was reading a book about this woman who was a Buddhist monk, and she could meditate and go back in time. She could walk through walls. She met the Buddha because she went back in time. She could go forward in time. She could do all these spectacular things. She could meet people dead and alive. She was telepathic, and I just thought, phew, that enlightenment is for me. That's for me. Sounded pretty good. Healing myself didn't sound quite so appealing. Myself. But what is it that you really want? So this dramatic story of truth, of finding enlightenment, of going home. But what is it that you really, really want? Am I still in shot? Yes. In one way, waking up is the total surrender of your wants. And in another way, it's following your wants. It's like everything, it's that total contradiction. Like your true wants, it's like you no longer act. You no longer have a desire or want. It's like God's want. And it acts as if it's a personal want. So the body wants food, the body wants to speak. But it's like the true wants, it's like the deep wants. But there's a part of this that there is a complete surrendering of wants. You no longer have wants. People get that confused. They try to not have wants, and that doesn't work, because it's not about you when you're there trying not to have wants. It's about the collapse of you, and then there are the natural wants. So this doesn't work. Like, the person trying not to have a want or a desire isn't going to work. It's an interesting practice that you could try, but it's not going to work out for you. Just like everything, nothing works out for you. I don't mean to sound depressive that nothing works out for you, but when you realize this, and somebody telling you that nothing's going to work out, is a bit of a relief, because your whole life you've been trying to make it work out, and everyone else says life is going to work out, so the common denominator is you. So you're like, well, it's me that's not working out. Nothing for anybody is ever going to work out, because it can't. Because the goals of humanity are insanity. The goals of humanity are about trying to make something permanent which isn't permanent, and it's based on a separate self that doesn't exist. That you have a life and that you're going to be happy. So it's never going to work out for you. All of this should be a relief, and all of this should be opening. If this is beginning to add to your depression, you're listening to it in the wrong way. If it's making you feel depressed and closed, you're taking this on board for you. There's no meaning for me. There's no way out for me. And that's not what I'm saying at all, because there is no you. That's you claiming something again. The idea that you can't do anything is arrogance, because who is the person that can't do anything? Who are you to do or not do something? Who? Who let the dogs out? Who? Life is like a gentle river. Just flows. It flows. And there's no part of the river that says, this is me, this is my part of the river, I am running the river. The river just flows. So who are you then, if you're not this person? The most intimate sense of being is what's always been there, this experiencing of everything. That's never moved. It's a happening and a not happening. It's never moved the experiencing. What has moved is the things, and it's made it feel like you're someone moving around through things, but actually there is experiencing, and there is somebody that's seemingly moving through things, but the reality is there is always experiencing, which is still and in movement. It's a happening and not happening. Who you are is this. Who let the dogs out? Who? Who? all that has to happen is a stepping into this natural flow of who you are. It's a happening, and you getting out of the way, the illusory you getting out of the way. And who you are is what you've always been. It's what's always here. It's the most intimate sense of being, this experiencing and this sense of existence that you are. And this experiencing is so majestic because it's not separate from anything that's appearing. So what's appearing is the experiencing. So there isn't something that's experiencing things that are changing. The experiencer is the things. There is no subject object. And this is your true experience. When all is said and done and you stop thinking about yourself and what you know and what you've learned, and you step into the mystery of what is, then there is no divide between an internal and external world. And that's love. That's who you are. So what is it you truly want? What you are is what is. That's what you truly want. Whatever you are, whatever is happening. This is perfection. Whether you're suffering or not suffering, it's exactly what you want as the experiencer. The person might feel victim to the experiencer, like, God, why have you made me suffer? God, what are you doing to humanity? But you are God, so you're kind of pointing the finger at yourself. That most intimate sense of being is what's creating. That might make you feel good or bad, but it's irrelevant whether it makes you feel good or bad, because that's the person that feels good or bad about it. And what's trying to be expressed is there's something beyond the person, and the person then might feel guilty, like, oh man, I dreamed up a bad dream for other people or for myself, or it's my fault, this world. But that's total nonsense, because it's got nothing to do with you on the human level. It's you as the experiencer, which is creating unconsciously. It's not conscious of what it's creating. It's spontaneously creating out of art, out of joy, out of love, for no reason at all, with no meaning. But in the human world, it seems to make meaning. But that's only the human world. To the animals, to everything else that exists, there is no meaning to this. And in your most innermost being of self, your true self, this is meaningless. As you step aside from what you think you know, this is meaningless. There's no meaning to any of it. And this is not depressing. If it's making you depressed, then that's the person that's like, my life is meaningless, and that's not what I'm saying. It's two different worlds. On the human level, what you can do, even though it's not really you doing it, but what I can talk about is a reconditioning of you that can happen from listening to these talks. So this is a description of what can happen and not a prescription. It's impossible to have a prescription, because who would I be to prescribe to you? There is no independent actor or doer. There is only life happening. So So on the human level, if the person is in despair or unhappiness or pain, then I can talk about ways in order for that person to help itself. And the best thing that that person can do is to understand itself on the human level, understand on the human level what it's looking for, and see the stories that go along with what you're looking for. So most people are looking for love, but they're always telling themselves they're unworthy and they can't get love, but they're not conscious of that. So it's creating disturbance in their body and in their energetic system, and their chakras become all out of balance and they feel tired and uncomfortable because they're telling themselves stories which are contradictory to what they want, and they have this feeling that they can't get what they want, that they're powerless or helpless or hopeless, which isn't true at all. And it's all stories that you're telling yourself, which are genetic, which come from the family line and from society and come from your social upbringing. And they're not true. So you can understand that better, and you can help recondition yourself by focusing on what you do want. So seeing it's what you want is love. So acknowledging that I want love, acknowledging that you've got stories that are saying that you can't be loved, that nobody loves you, that you're this or you're that you're bad. And then tell yourself the opposite. So I want love, I am love, and make this a habit throughout the day. I am worthy, I can do this, it's not true. All these other stories. But that's not going to lead you to liberation, because there is nobody to be led to liberation, because there is no independent entity that exists. This is a world of one, not of multiple. So who would be this separate person that would wake up? It's seeing that there is this experiencer that isn't separate, that's free right now, here in this experience. And that there isn't actually someone that really exists that's suffering. There just seems to be somebody that's existing that's suffering. And when that person is feeling identified and uncomfortable, it seeks in time to find solutions. And the more it seeks in time, the more uncomfortable it becomes. The more it weighs onto itself. I have to have this, I have to have that, I have to do this. And it gets heavier and heavier, and life becomes more stressful, and it gets all these things, and the more things it gets, the more things it's got to look after, and the more time it has to spend moving these things around, cleaning these things, putting these things in safes, removing them from safes, putting them in another safe, giving them to a bank, selling them, buying new ones. And it's exhausting. By the time you're 50, you just feel cut off from your body because you're uncomfortable. So you just live up here. You're just a walking head with thoughts that's dead but seemingly alive. And you've forgotten what love is, but you kind of remember it from childhood, this childlike wonder that when you were a child, there was this wondrous mystery to life, that you didn't know why there was a moon or what the stars were, but there was a wonder to it, there was an innocence to it, and you could play for hours for no reason. It didn't mean anything. Your game was absolutely pointless. You were playing hopscotch or pom-pom we used to play in England, where you used to have to hide and other people would come and find you, and then you had to run back to base, and it's absolutely pointless and nobody really wins because it just goes from one catcher to the other and you never really get a medal, but it's incredibly good fun. Or hide and seek. And it had no meaning at all. The more meaningful your life is internally, the more meaningless you feel. So if you're somebody that's always sprouting meaning to everything, then you're internally very caged. The trick to life is about wonder, the wonder of being.